Welcome, everybody, to Talking New York Knicks basketball. No, sorry. It's Greg Heym's Crossing the Line, where we talk about New York Knicks basketball. Anyhow, we are here today at the Real Deal New York City Forum at the Metropolitan Pavilion. Back again. Does it seem like it's been a year, Nadler?
It does not. It's very exciting. It's very busy. The energy is palpable. Shar and I were just talking before this that there was a charity event that would take place here every year for years. And the security is very tight right now. But Shar has a great story about a friend who used to sneak in.
He came in early
to a
in the
charity
day
event
with the coat check people. He came in with the coat check people.
Well,
He would come in early.
Yeah,
that does take a certain level of commitment. Anyhow, we got our Attorney General here,
Thank you,
Shahriar
Ray.
Sedgh. We got Loan Daddy, Scott Nadler. We got Greg Heym, we got Ray, we got Lena.
The whole crew.
So a lot to fit in a very shortened, I don't know if they did that on purpose, to keep our show a little short, but so we got GDP numbers for the first quarter. It's fine. Finally, we don't have delayed economic reporting anymore, but 2% growth, not great, not terrible, right? We expect a little bit of bump in government spending because of lockdown, record-setting lockdown, shutdown. See, it's too early in the morning to be this loud. Delayed a lot of the government spending that would have happened. Consumer spending is decent. Obviously, we're worried more about inflation. PCE came in as expected, but now you're thinking about close to 3.5%. That's scary, Scott, isn't it?
It is, and with the new Fed chairman coming on board, this is going to be he's inheriting an economy right now that inflation is still persistent, and it's still the number one topic of conversation that is on most people's minds.
Right.
I think a lot of talk has been around him probably wanting to cut, but if inflation's going to be the number one driver that most people are talking about and most people are worried about, is he really going to cut?
Right.
And if he does cut, can that be seen as inflationary? And does the market have a reverse reaction to that?
Well,
so I think he's in an interesting spot and inheriting this position at a really interesting and important time. Right. But by all accounts, he seems to be the right person to, if you're really in a dire situation like we are right now, having someone like him at the helm is encouraging.
Well, and he has experience, and obviously Jerome Powell's going to stay on the Board of Governors. But it must be hard for you. People are saying, oh, now we're getting a new Fed chair, we're going to get rate cuts. And that would be the exact thing you wouldn't want to happen if you're looking to get a 30-year mortgage, in my opinion, because of that reason. Inflation expectations are going to go up. You can write off a lot of this to a 20% jump in gas prices in March. But as the Nadler rule tells us, Shar Sedgh, rates come down a lot slower than they go up. Same thing with prices. But, the Fed is a dual mandate, obviously keep inflation at bay and maximize employment. Right. And you told us you've made a change now in your personality. You've gone from no hire, no fire to
low hire, low fire.
Right. And we found out that initial claims for unemployment last week were the lowest level since the Jets and the Mets were world champions. That's pretty unbelievable. And that's a time that will never happen again.
Tell the listeners what year that would be.
That was 1969.
That's a long time ago.
When we landed a man on the moon. Allegedly, Ray says, we're trying to do that again. But, it costs a lot. You think it'd be cheaper now, right? Because the technology's cheaper.
You thought you have an express ride to the moon right now.
Think about what computers cost now versus 1969 in terms of real dollars.
Well, they say the technology on Apollo 13 didn't even meet the minimum iPad, iPhone technology, the amount of memory and sophistication.
I think if you think of the people that saw the moon landing, by now you would have thought we'd be beaming people to the moon, like Mr. Scott would just beam us all there. Right. But you mentioned low hire, the ADP numbers that keep coming out are showing, that it looks like when we get the number this Friday, it could be over 100,000 jobs created, which, would be nice to have back-to-back six-figure job growth. Right?
Absolutely. And that article I was telling you about, the revisions for last month were only 1,000. So you do have back-to-back months with good job growth. So that might offset the intentions of the incoming chairman to lower rates. From my perspective, I would prefer the benchmark rates not to be dropped. I think as far as the real estate market, we're sort of in a calm flow going into the spring market. We've talked about this year sort of being a year of understanding where we are. We don't want highs, we don't want lows. When you have consistency, that's when buyers and sellers feel comfortable to come in and out of the market. If we would hear all of a sudden that this incoming chairman was going to drop rates, every buyer is going to, out of naivety, would say, let me wait to see what happens. If they drop rates, what's going to happen to mortgage rates?
Not if they watch the show, they won't say that.
Exactly. So the uneducated, though, would pull themselves out and say, let me see, and put themselves on the sideline, where right now I think we have a lot of people ready to jump in the water in this market, and I'd hate to see that get rocked.
I actually want to ask you something. So if people filing for unemployment for the first time, that number's going down. But if
it's weekly data. Remember, initial claims is not meant to be an official statistic. We really leaned on it during COVID, and it's become a lot more prevalent.
So the average amount that people can take from unemployment is around $400 a week. That comes to about $20,000 a year, which the majority of people cannot live on. So what I think a lot of these people are doing is they're not filing for unemployment, and they're working in the gig economy, right? They're driving Uber, right. They're doing DoorDash, whatever the case is, to supplement or to increase their income far and above what they would get from filing for unemployment.
Well, also are a lot of these people baby boomers that are saying, you know what, I'm done.
Correct, retiring before they even,
or there's always the argument there are people confident enough they're going to get a job. We got job openings data for March, and it didn't move really. Almost 7 million available jobs. I know there's a lot of people watching going, could you please let me in on where some of those are? But that could be part of it too. They're confident they're getting another job, or they get severance. And remember, weekly data is always volatile.
Yeah, so I think those numbers are not exactly accurate to what's happening in the economy itself, but I do have clients who, I just spoke to someone yesterday, Ivy League educated, who's been out of work for 8 months, cannot find a job, and in the tech sector. So it's a challenge out there for sure.
Well, the irony is even the tech sector can't, avoid AI layoffs.
Right.
Because I talked to a friend of mine who's a programmer, and he says he's never been this productive. Stuff like Claude, and he's like, you don't even have to know Python and anything like that anymore.
Right.
I got to get versed in that. When is the AI Shar coming out?
So
this might be it.
There's actually an AI picture of me as an ad on 2nd Avenue and 54th Street. There's a
does it have hair?
There's a street shop brokerage that has a window, and he bought a huge TV, and we work with them, and he said he wanted to put out some advertisements. So there's like a rolling ad of some of his agents and marketing sponsors. So he's got a picture of me, and
he knew what you looked like before.
It's not a picture I had ever taken before in my
That's why there's so much traffic on 2nd Avenue now.
They're like, what is that?
Exactly.
I want to run away from it, but I can't help but be drawn to it.
But what I have seen a lot is, as soon as closings are done, I'm seeing brokers posting, on social media, these things that used to take a long time to generate. Now they're just putting in an address, a picture from a closing, uploading, and within 5 minutes, it's on social media that the deal closed. So there is a lot going on there.
I still can't get past the little babies telling jokes, stand-up comedy jokes. I think they're the funniest things I've ever seen in my life. All right, we're going to have to take a break for messages from these guys and who knows who else, but we'll be right back with more Greg Heym's Crossing the Line.
Investors, this is your moment. I'm Scott Nadler with CrossCountry Mortgage, and whether you're starting out or growing your empire, I've got the loan solutions to make your next move a success. Let's talk today.
Sedgh and Zuckerman is a boutique residential law firm guiding you and your clients every step of the way with a solution-oriented approach. Make sure to work with a deal maker and not a deal breaker. Contact us today at sznylaw.com.
All right, and we're back here at the Real Deal, New York City.
I don't have the
Forum.
table. I don't have the table to.
I know, and I don't have bobbleheads.
That's why we have Ray.
We should have had Ray just stand here and hold the bobbleheads.
Right.
But he claims that's not his job. I don't know about that. We'll have to look up. So we're stocks are very happy, right? You know, we've seen new records in the S&P 500. April was the best month in, I think, 6 years for stocks. How does Wall Street shake this off so easily, Shahriar Sedgh?
You're asking me to explain how the stock market works?
Well, it's like a leading question. No, so the thing with stocks is they don't care what just happened. What I just said to you is already past them. They don't care what's happening right at the moment. Right. And a lot of people will always tell you that stock prices depend on two things, and inflation and interest rates. You know, interest rates are part of that for sure, but it's all about profits, let's be honest. You're either making money or you're not making money. And, you know, it's amazing. You would think there'd be volatility because one day the war is going to end, the next day it's not. You know,
I feel like we're numb. From that. I remember we were talking about the tariffs when they were the topic of conversation, and it was a random show we were doing. I don't even know if we have the tariffs today. We don't have the tariffs today. The joke I made is Einhorn Finkel is Finkel Einhorn. I think we're at the point where we're not letting these short-term. Thank you for getting the reference. These short-term obstacles impact the future model, and I feel like investors are there, and I think that's impacting a lot of our market as well. The reason deals are closing at such a pace is because people are going to be able to put aside the fact that there's a war. There's short-term issues that come with that, but the market eventually is going to come back to where it was, and they'll look past it.
One thing we see also is recently clients who would have been all cash buyers taking out loans because they don't want to liquidate their stock holdings. So
because they're performing too well.
So we had a client recently who, for months and months and months, been looking at properties in the $2 million range, and eventually said, you know what, I would love to get a loan. So his agent connected him to us, and for that agent and for this buyer now, he's buying two properties because he knows he can get financing. Doesn't want to liquidate all. His daughter's graduating from college soon. He's going to buy a property for her. So I think that's a little bit of a shift in the market also. When you see an uptick in the stock market, behavior changes.
Do I have to get my son a place to live after
that was going to be the
graduates?
third segment. We're going to talk about how to get
we're going to have to raise the
son.
sponsorships on the show if I'm going to buy. Paying for his college is bad enough. So mortgage rates, they've been predictable in an unpredictable world. And to Shar's point, it's amazing what we can get used to, right? You think about the chaos that we see on a daily basis with some of the things the administration says, you would expect a lot more volatility in the mortgage market. Maybe they're just giving up and saying, let's just keep them around here and we'll be fine. But the thing that isn't talked about enough, we talk about inflation spiking because of the war, how long it may take to come down, whether we cut rates or not. The biggest threat, I think, to the mortgage market is the U.S. debt. Our debt is now equal to our GDP. That's not a good thing for those playing at home. It hasn't. We're almost to a point where we're going to surpass where it was during World War II.
Well, the interest that we're paying on our debt exceeded defense spending. And that's a recipe for disaster for any empire, any country. It's a major problem. Our interest expense is exceeding $1 trillion right now, and that's a lot more than our defense spending.
And our defense spending is going to go up too. But it happens when you have a war going on.
Yeah.
Well, for a minute there was talk about using the money from the tariffs to pay down the debt, but that was.
Now they got to give the money back. Yeah, well, now they got to give the money back for a large portion of those.
Until they don't. But then they may have to again.
They're also being encouraged not to file refunds requests also at the same time.
This is a both sides of the aisle issue. I don't think you can say one side or the other has strategies in place to pay down the debt. I mean, again, I think the tariffs were a strategy, but it's not being done.
It's not in an elected official's interest to stop spending money at the same levels. That's why my idea to end government shutdowns forever is never going to happen. If you can't pass a budget by October 1st, continuing resolution kicks in until you pass one. They'll pass budgets like that if that becomes law.
Right.
But they're not going to do that because they want to keep spending and getting votes. So what are some of the other conversations you're seeing? Anything else changing in the mix when you're talking to people? You see a lot of refinancings, or did that kind of die down a bit?
I think, and it's interesting because I think that window closed. There were a good amount of people pre-war that, and we've talked about this, that were really greedy. That were saying, all right, rates are at 6% or 5.875. Let's wait until they get to 5.5%. And it seems very salesy to say, no, your window of opportunity is closing. You want to strike now while you have the savings on the table. Self-serving for me. But I always tell, whether you do it with me or somebody else, doesn't matter. This is in your best interest to start doing this. And as we can see, the rates were there. Remember, we had all those headlines, rates under 6%.
Right.
And
That's gone.
we yelled it on the show.
We did. But I think by and large, to your point, I think clients understand, and there's been so much volatility in the bond market overall. Rates have not moved all that much
It's
with
shocking.
all this volatility
Yeah,
that has been happening. So as we're talking to prospective clients and active clients who have not locked in their rate yet, when we're going over where the rates are every other day, every week, it's not vacillating as much as you would expect, which is good. So it's keeping people in the market. It's been very active. We've been busy. April was very, very busy for us. It's been active, and now with like the spring buying season, we're seeing a lot of the same.
It's interesting because the contract signed data that I look at it's not showing up in the contracts yet.
Yeah.
I know you get involved very early in the process. So what are the conversations you're having now?
So one of the recurring themes we're seeing, as far as refis, we're seeing the only people refinancing now are really people coming off their 5 and 7/1 ARMs when rates were really low. And they thought that they were being aggressive and thought that they'd be out of the house by the time they had to refi. But with rates where they've been the last 5-6 years, they were probably priced out of it. So those are people coming back to a realization that they should lock in their rates now for 30 years until they're able to move. When we're doing due diligence on co-ops, you have a lot of co-ops that have 10-year interest-only loans that are coming due in the next 3 to 4 years as well. So you have their payments going to be going up significantly, which may impact the financials of the co-op, which maybe trickle down to the buyers. So I have some buyers who are anticipating maintenance going up, assessments to cover those things as well. And that's really important why we take those 2 weeks to get from offer accepted to signing contract. You really need to analyze what's going on in the co-ops to make sure your client's not walking into something they can't afford.
Because maintenance only goes up.
It only goes up.
And you made the good point too about assessments.
I make a lot of good points. Which one are you referring to?
No, you're talking about keeping maintenance like at a steadier level, more predictable. Like some previous people, you did say this on the show, to get mad when they see assessments, but it actually can be a good thing.
Oh, that's right. We did talk about it.
It sort of neutralizes the sticker shocks.
So there is like this feeling that when you see an assessment, it's a bad thing, but it's not always a bad thing. If a building has to do, let's say, $5 million of local law 11, if they have that type of cash laying around and able to just spend it without charging an assessment, that means they're charging you too much money every month on your maintenance, and they're just hoarding your money in their reserve account. So you have to sort of
Comfort me when you actually need it.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
I don't think you know this, but we're both unlicensed therapists also. So a lot of these prospective buyers the anxiety levels are very, very high right now. When they see something like an assessment, they're talking to us about the volatility in the market. A lot of it is calming the nerves of a lot of these buyers.
You know what? I don't feel calm after the shows.
So when you make fun of the deal maker, not a deal breaker. I'll tell you what
How could I not make fun of that?
I'll tell you what a deal breaker does. A deal breaker sees an assessment coming up on a building and calls his client and says, "We have a problem. Did you know about this?" And that client calls the broker and says, "Why didn't you tell me about this?" Well, it's not the broker's job to know that. It's the attorney's job. But the client doesn't differentiate that. What a deal maker does is call the broker and say, "Hey, I found this out in due diligence. Does the client know it?" very often the broker knows the client very well, right? They've spent months with them. They know what drives them. They know what they're scared of. They know what conversations they had leading up to it. And sometimes the broker says, yeah, we saw the selling agent sort of said that. They should be okay with it. They're not priced out. And there's other brokers that say, no, this is a problem. We need to talk to them right now. And how you present it to them cohesively with the agent makes it a much easier experience.
I can see Shar being a calming figure there. He doesn't get too hot or too cold.
No, you can't. You
Very
can't.
much so.
All right, we're going to take one last break, and then we're going to get to the important part of the show, NBA playoff predictions.
Looking to stage a property but on a tight budget and timeline? Stage with Stage and Fold. Stylish, lightweight, foldable, 3D printed cardboard furniture that looks real. Quick delivery and easy assembly. Staging starts at just $199 a month per room, and setup takes less than 30 minutes. Contact us today to stage smarter, sell faster, save thousands with Stage and Fold.
This beautiful set here at Studio 1873 is brought to you by the Everset. The Everset provides full-service staging and furniture rental solutions in the New York area. For more information, please visit us at staging.theeverset.com or email us at staging@theeverset.com to request a free proposal.
All right, and we're back.
Woo.
Is there anything else we need to talk about before we get off topic? Well, again, we have an employment report coming out Friday. That's going to be interesting to see what happens. And we do have a kind of acceptance that rates aren't where we like them, but they're not moving up at a scary pace. The stock market is shrugging all of this off. We hate that a war is going on, but it's
What
not.
are your thoughts on Powell staying on? The first Fed chairman to stay on since, I think it was 1948 or something like that?
How much of that is out of spite, you think? I don't, or maybe he thinks he's that important. You were a terrible Fed chair. You're going to go down. Actually, most of them go down as terrible. Remember, the number one cause of recessions in the United States is bad Fed policy. And that's a proven fact. I'm not making that up. I think that it's a hard job because you don't control everything. You know, you have the Fed funds rate. You can also make some other changes about buying or selling your securities. But when you're so wrong about inflation being transitory, you know, the great thing about Warsh is he wants to get rid of this forward guidance and all of these dot plots where they make a prediction. We talked about this last week, and they feel they've got to dig in and stick to it or else. It's a terrible idea. He also wants to look at inflation differently.
Yeah.
Let's take the noise out.
I know that when he is at the Barnes & Noble on Fifth Avenue signing autographs of his New York Times best-selling book that he's probably going to write, you'll probably be first online to get that book.
I'll be handing him a resume, I think, at that point.
What's his next move? Where do these Fed chairmen usually do? They go
What's
to the private
title?
sector?
Wait, hang on. What's the title of the Jerome Powell book that he's going to write after his stint with the Fed?
Oops. That's going to be the
Oops, they won't let me do it again.
or no, oops, I screwed up. Or like, I lied. Like the OJ book, If I Did It. Like him kind of saying he
I will
did
say,
it,
oops,
but didn't
oops
do
is
it.
fantastic.
I think, well, look, a lot of these Fed chair are older people. Warsh is actually my age. So they probably just go out and make, a lot more money again.
Yeah.
Whatever they're being paid now, they make that per speech, or he'll be on the board of some company. It's like a nice pension.
So is it possible he doesn't have his next job lined up and he's like, let me just stay here, stick it to them for a little bit?
Okay, you know how much money he's worth, right? His
No.
next job is not of concern.
No, I don't know how much he's worth.
Well, he's made a lot of money and he married into a lot of money. So,
okay.
a lot has been
Seems
made
to
of
be
that.
a requirement for the Fed chairman these days.
Yes. That rules me out. All right, so we got to talk about the Knicks in his closing minutes because that's what we like to do. They're on a run, Scott Nadler, that we have not seen, winning games like they're the Bulls team of the 90s, just going and destroying teams. How long can that go on?
I was just going to say, as a lifelong Knicks fan, this is when you get worried.
You're waiting for this. You're waiting for this.
It's too good to be true. as
Well,
players,
remember, when they blew those two games
By 1
games
point
2 and
each.
3 to Atlanta.
Correct.
Right. But they choked those games away. You're like, oh no, this is the Indy series all over again, right?
as players are taught take one game at a time, one quarter at a time, one possession at a time. I think as fans, we need to start doing the same thing because we are so hyperbolic as fans. It was a week ago where we were like, fire the coach.
Right.
Maybe Brunson's not that good. Let's
Right.
blow
Get
the whole
rid of
thing
Cat.
up. Let's
Why
get
is he
Giannis.
turning the ball over on the last play
whole
of the game?
thing. And now look, a week later, we're like, what are the odds for us to win the championship? Could we? How do we match up with OKC?
We're having conversations in the office. We're like, well, if we make the finals, like we have to go to every game. This is a once in a lifetime
Right.
opportunity.
You buy, of course,
and
yes.
we started trying to think about how much ticket prices are going to. We're getting way ahead of
Right.
ourselves. I
Right.
agree, but I feel like this might be the joy that we need to take because at some point reality is going to hit.
There's only a couple fan bases like that, right? I can't imagine, fan bases in some small markets like Indiana or San Antonio
Well, you
have
know
the
what's
same
funny?
type of
My son's
mentality.
up at University of Buffalo, and the Sabres, next to the Jets, had the longest playoff drought, and now they're playing exciting hockey. The place is going nuts. Last time I drove up there, it used to be all you saw was Bills banners. Now Sabres everywhere. So, and Buffalo is the second largest city in New York, but it can really get an excitement level. The Knicks were so bad for so long, Shahriar Sedgh, that we thought we'd never enjoy it. And look, they're still in the scope of their existence pathetic. 2 championships in 100 years is pathetic. I'm sorry, it is.
In the greatest city of the world, right? Everybody should want to come play in New York. Weather aside, there's an electricity in the Garden that you don't have in any other arena in the NBA. And I think LeBron made a big mistake when he didn't come here, when he made the decision. Like, this city could have been the toast of the town for the rest of his life.
Yeah, but think about it. He went to Florida where he didn't have to pay state income tax, won a couple rings, right?
I think he would
did
make
all right.
that up one way or another being here.
Well, yeah. But you can say how much money does one, more, whatever he needs.
Imagine
It's
we
about
drafted
legacy.
Steph Curry. Imagine Steph Curry playing in the Garden his whole career.
Imagine we drafted Mikal Bridges instead of Kevin Knox. We'd have 5 first-round picks.
Exactly.
There was also, we were looking, I think it was the 2021 draft. We played the Hawks in the last round. Their best player was Jalen Johnson. Jalen Johnson was the 21st pick. The Knicks had the 20th pick and the 22nd pick.
Not known
Just
for drafting
missed it.
well. And even when we do draft well, something happens. Look at Porzingis, right? The guy can't stay healthy. When he's healthy, he's amazing.
I'd be curious to see, I don't know if your team can do the research on this, but to see when a sports team is doing well, what that does economically for that city. Because the amount of, the restaurants are filled up, the bars are all filled up, everyone's wearing Knicks hats and shirts right now in the city. But that's our city. What happens in other cities when the hockey team's doing well, the basketball team's
Well,
doing
I'll
well.
tell you one thing that happens, the secondary ticket market blows up. Once it became legal to resell tickets, you think of, everybody talks about Springsteen and what those tickets could go for. But Knick tickets, if they make the
It's
NBA
insane.
Finals, will be thousands each for nosebleeds. And you better start saving now because you're taking us.
I think the face value ticket to the Garden increases. I think almost 10x what the regular season.
You
price
can
is.
get into this series, if you want to sit in the 300s. I saw for like 500, 600 a ticket.
Yeah, but
You're not excited about that, but the face on those tickets is probably a couple hundred.
Yeah,
So you're
it's
paying
true.
3 times, but that's going to go up a ridiculous amount.
I have a friend that went to Game 6 in Philly, Sixers Celtics, 8th row, $300.
it'll
And
probably
then-
be cheaper to drive to Philly. or
You
go to-
wonder why we trash Philly
Yeah,
on this show.
yeah.
And, they're trying to stop Knick fans from buying, but I saw in the paper these bus services are arranging buses from the Garden
Are they really?
to the Philly Arena, for a reasonable price, just to stick it to Philly. Because nobody likes you, Philly, let's be honest. But it's funny how we almost went to, oh my God, we're going to lose in the first round to Atlanta. Then it's like, wait, Boston lost. Oh,
I
wait,
mean, it's-
maybe Detroit and Cleveland will lose. Oh, man, no,
I
they
know.
didn't.
I would have liked it for Detroit to leave, but I feel like all the pieces are in play for us to make a move this year. And I think it's going to be the best shot
We
we
just
have.
got to
with
hope
this
it's
squad.
the Spurs in the finals instead of OKC because
We don't play
cannot beat
OKC
OKC.
good. It's
Well, you
true.
can't- stopping SGA is something that nobody's been able to figure out how to do yet.
And tickets in OKC are probably pretty cheap though.
You never know. You never know. See, the problem is in the South, college sports tend to be bigger than
Right.
pro sports.
Right.
So there is always that challenge. And it's funny, look at hockey. When you talk about the South, Panthers won the last 2 Stanley Cups. Tampa's won a couple of cups recently. Carolina looks like they could win a cup this year.
All right, so what do you think? Knicks in how many games?
5.
5. I think it's going to go 6. I don't think Philly is as
Way
bad
to
as they
be
looked that
pessimistic.
day.
Embiid's banged up. He looked like he couldn't continue.
We had both of our big guys in foul trouble.
That's all right. We got extra big guys. Don't worry about it.
I think they were run down after a 7-game series. They had to turn around in 48 hours. They had to travel. I know it's not far. I think there's going to still be trouble when we get to Philly. They play well at home.
All right,
We're
what
going to
do you
move on.
got?
We're not as bad as we looked against Atlanta those 2 games. We're not as good as we looked these last couple of games. We're somewhere in the middle, and I just think ultimately we have to be able to beat Detroit to get to the finals.
They were up a lot against the Celtics in Game 7 and started going away from Maxey to Embiid, just featuring Embiid. And the Celtics came back, and then when they started going back to Maxey, that's when they pulled away.
Yeah.
In Game 1, they were featuring Embiid, kind of staying away from Maxey. I think if they flip that, Maxey's a tough cover. We have not done well
And he
against
loves
quicker
the Garden.
guards.
He loves the Garden.
And I could see him having a moment, whether
Well, I
it's
still
this
remember
game or
that
next
shot
game.
from, was it 2 years ago? He hit from like almost half court.
Yeah.
He's a dynamic player.
He's an incredible
and
prep
around
player.
the rim, for a guy who's not that big,
Yeah.
he could finish.
So I'm worried about him. I agree. I think Knicks in 6.
All right, I'm
feels
going
right.
5 because I got the guts. Anyhow, that's our show for this week, live from the Real Deal New York City Forum. Thank you to Scott and Shar. Thanks to Ray and Lena. Thanks to this crowd for drowning us out, maybe. And thanks to everybody for supporting the show. Have a great week.
What do you really need to know about buying or selling a home? First, it's serious business. And it's complicated. There's a lot of money on the table, and emotion too. You need an agent who knows the ropes. So, whether you're buying or selling your home, work with professionals who have a mastery of the craft.